Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Transformational Astrology. I'm Henry Seltzer, and this is a little bit unusual, the screen. We're doing a different way because we've been having some technical problems, actually, with the other way we were doing things. And we want to talk about the full moon. We're going to have a kind of a mid-December talk and talk about the full moon that's coming up. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an impression, too, about the planets in 2020 and where they might be headed. And of course, there's the famous triple conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto that's coming up in mid-December, mid-November of 2020, which is important to talk about. I don't think that it's too soon to talk about that. The other the other major thing on the agenda is in the astrological agenda for 2020 is that Saturn and Pluto will be coming together on January 5th, 12th to 15th. I include the 15th because there's a lot of, the sun is there too at that point, and I think it's still very powerful. So I usually say the January 12th to 15th for Saturn Pluto coming up in 2020. So we want to talk about those few things, and I want to show you the chart for the upcoming full moon. And we're going to be getting to that in just one moment. And so here we go. I think you can see it pretty clearly. The sun is at 19 degrees of Sag, opposite the moon at 19 degrees of Gemini. And the funny thing about this sun and moon is that they also make an angle to Uranus. And that's interesting because the new moon, which is at 4 degrees of Gemini, which started this cycle just before Thanksgiving, we're still in the midst of that cycle, 30-day cycle, right up until the Christmas eclipse, which is coming right up, which is going to be a powerful eclipse right at the beginning of Capricorn, also making an aspect, not as strong an aspect to Uranus, but we have a lot of Uranus in this cycle, which is what I was trying to get to. So there's a lot of Uranus, there's also a lot of Neptune. We have actually Mars exactly trine to Neptune. And Saturn and Pluto are still doing their thing. They're still quite close together. They're still parallel almost to the degree, almost to the minute of a degree, 22.0 versus 22.3, so 3/10 of a degree, or that would be like 18 minutes of a degree. So what we have here is a lot of outer planet material, which does make us think about the bigger picture, and that's really what's coming up for us now. I believe that what we're in the midst of now is a real preview of what's happening in 2020. Pluto and Saturn are close together now. They will be conjunct around the middle of January. And I have that chart to show you, so I guess I'll just bring it up right now. So here's the chart for January. I picked January 15th because that's when the sun comes through this same, you can see there's a lot of planets all in Capricorn, 6 planets in Capricorn, counting the south node. And what we have is we have Pluto and Saturn very close together. At that time, they are conjunct at 22 degrees, and then Saturn moves a little bit past, and then the sun comes through. So around the 12th is the exact, and then this is a really strong Capricorn time also. And again, remember that Eris is exactly square to this position, which is true in the current chart. So here's the current chart for the full moon. And we just recognize that this is a peak time. This is a really powerful time. I mean, in this country, we can see the impeachment going forward. There's a lot of polarity. There's a lot of conservative empowerment right now, which is what Rick Tarnas calls the Saturn and Pluto conjunction that we're in the midst of, that was going to become perfect in January 2012. And then just to show you the little preview, it will become, let's go and look at November. So if we were to edit this for November chart, November is 11. Now we can see that, in the meantime, this is again looking at it from the standpoint of an Aries chart, Aries rising chart. Saturn has moved into Aquarius, moved back again, and Pluto has moved forward but moved back, and now they're really right about the same place. Pluto's at 22. We have Eris still at 23 degrees, even though it's a whole year away, because it's gone forward a little bit and then back, and then now is at 23 degrees. So here's Jupiter right at 23 degrees. Here is Pluto about to cross into 23. It's 22:55. So this is really very intense triple conjunction with Saturn as well, just on the U.S. Pluto, and with Mars, which is at 15 degrees at this juncture. It has just turned direct at 15 degrees. On the 13th it turns direct, which is 2 days ahead of this. So this is, and that's incidentally opposite the Saturn in the U.S. chart as well. And Saturn in this chart is on the Pluto in the U.S. chart. So this is just a really intense time. It's something we just need to be aware of, that this whole country is going through such a transformation. You can see it by looking at the headlines. You can see that things are kind of crazy coming up. And we are going to be in the midst of quite a bit of turmoil at that time. So after the election. So there's something about this election that's going to be not a sudden thing where we just have the result, but it's going to take quite some time to resolve. And it will be a very intense time as we attempt to resolve that. So that's basically what I wanted to say about this. This full moon is kind of a harbinger. This timing that we're in that right now, with also Jupiter just crossing into Capricorn, is kind of a harbinger for the next year, which is a very powerful year. This is a very powerful time, this full moon. I think we'll all feel the effects of this full moon, especially with Venus caught right in between Saturn and Pluto. Anybody with a strong Venus will feel this. Anybody with something at 20 degrees of the cardinal signs, 21, will feel this. It just is a very powerful time right now. And time to take stock as we wind up the year and recognize that we are coming to a very important juncture in our history where also climate change is going to be such an important factor. And we just have to recognize that it's time for everybody to stand up and be counted, is what I keep saying with Eris so much in this picture. Because Eris is a very powerful planetary archetype in Western astrology also, and it will be squaring this Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter triple conjunction that's coming up next year. So I guess I'll just make it short. Everybody's busy with holidays anyway right now. So have a good holiday, and be aware that we are in some very important times, that it's time to everybody pay attention and really do the best that you can do. Come from the best place that you can come from to just try to help the societal shift that needs to take place. We need to get serious about climate change. That means everybody, the population, and when the people will lead, the leaders will follow. And that's what's going to happen as we go into this next year of the beginning of the 2020 decade. All right, have a good holiday, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Take care.